South of Midnight pretty much sold itself to me at first glance. An action-adventure with mythical monsters, not to mention music and story representing the vibrant tapestry of culture in the Deep South. It sounded like a modern-day Witcher with flavourings of the swampy bayou. Yes, please. While trying to avoid spoilers, I'm going to cover the story, gameplay, graphics, and sound. The headline here is this: all of these components were great, bar one. There's one single disappointing component that stops me short of recommending this game at full retail price. A fly in the gumbo, if you will. So let's find that fly. We begin in the lead up to a hurricane. Hazel is brooding about her mother's absence while packing things away in preparation for the coming storm. When her mother finally walks in the door, a fight ensues, and Hazel has to leave out of frustration. She takes a breather to check on their neighbours, and the weather suddenly worsens. Hazel watches from the street in horror as their house is swept down the river with her mother still inside. Frantically, she starts chasing after the house as it careens down the river, but she quickly realises she won't be able to catch it. As the house disappears from sight, she decides to seek help from her estranged and wealthy grandmother. Hazel's search for her mother is long, and it brings her into contact with varying adults in Hazel's life who suffer from their own past emotional trauma. The whole story is a reimagining of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, right down to the rabbits and teacups. Hazel realises she has the power of a weaver, a kind of magical voodoo therapist who quite literally battles the demons that grow from emotional hurts. As she searches for her mother, she comes across areas of stigma, blobs of painful baggage that physically manifest as giant tumour growths in the environment. She can heal these emotional hurts and give people some peace.
Benji and his brother's troubles began when they were forced to move again.
Hazel is guided through the roughly 12-hour storyline not by a disappearing Cheshire cat, but by a giant catfish. I won't go into the story anymore to spare you from spoilers, but in each chapter, Hazel encounters either someone from her town who needs help, or the spirit of someone who haunts the area and needs a sad face exorcism. Like Lewis Carroll's narrative, the game explores themes of growing up in the complex world of adulthood, as well as change or transition from one state to another. The tale is customised for the South with regional mythological creatures that Hazel confronts, like the Rougarou, Huggan Molly, or the legend of La Llorona. It's an action-adventure title which boils down to combat and platforming. But before we get into those, I want to briefly talk about the user interface. It's a nicely uncluttered UI, but I found some of the button prompts to be very strange choices. Like backspace to exit an interaction was a particularly weird default button to pick. Less odd was choosing control for dodge and tab for area of effect. I mean, at least they're handy to the left-hand WASD controls, but they're still a little unconventional. The platforming felt quite good, and I enjoyed chaining zipline, double jump, and gliding all together. What I didn't enjoy chaining together was the combat. So the combat encounters outside the boss fights are highly controlled in these particular areas. They're scripted events. You see the opalescent tumour bubble, you walk into it, and combat begins. Demons begin to materialise, you then combine melee and ranged attacks together to defeat them, and the tumour disperses. My issues with it are threefold. The enemy variety is pretty limited. The combat controls feel a little sluggish, and then there's limited improvisation that can be done, leading to combat encounters feeling boring incredibly quickly. It's also really not helped by repetition. Often these combat arenas come in bursts of 3, and by the second I was often ready to tap out. There's a skill tree to improve your combat skills, but it's very shallow and didn't do enough to drain the tedium away. It's not particularly difficult combat, but the lack of any combat variety absolutely killed it for me. 3/4 through the story, I actually reset the difficulty down to story mode just so I could get through these arenas as quickly as humanly possible. And look, that's not great for an action-adventure game. I mean, it's in the title. If the action is bumming me out, you might have picked the wrong genre. The adventure I have no problem with, but the action brings nothing to the experience. Part of me wonders if this whole game would have been much better as a point-and-click adventure. What's interesting is there is a setting in the accessibility menu where you can just turn the combat encounters off. So as soon as you walk into one of these arenas, you get a prompt to skip the entire combat and get straight back to the story.
I'm headed up to here with y'all.
Yeah, me too. I do wonder what percentage of players will use it. I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't a sizable portion, particularly as the game gets on. On a happier note, the graphics are sensational. I really enjoyed the stop motion nature of the gameplay and the cutscenes. There's a lot of swamp to look at, but I don't think the swamps ever looked this good. And then of course, there's these gorgeous scenes of sunsets and horizons. Yep, I have no notes. Absolutely fantastic. The boss encounters are suitably cinematic and epic feeling, and I didn't find I was fighting the camera as much as I might expect in this kind of game. Performance was a little hard to gauge. I mean, it feels like it runs well most of the time, but I did see what I thought were the odd missed frame here and there, but found it a bit difficult to tell if that was due to performance drops or if it's due to the stop motion nature of the game. I'm inclined to say they were performance drops only because of the irregular cadence of the frames in those sections. I did encounter a single crash after a death close to the very end of the game, but I'll forgive just the one. No surprise, but the soundtrack is probably my favourite thing about South of Midnight. I've been recently introduced to jazz music, and there's some seriously great swamp blues and even honky-tonk tracks. It's not just that the music itself is good, but the timing of when the tunes drop is just perfected. The stories they tell, the heartache and the sadness is such a punch in the gut. If this soundtrack doesn't stoke a strong emotional response, you'll at least be happy with your new coat made of 101 Dalmatian skins. There are fantastic contributions from choir music that plays during boss battles, and even chilling whispers that cut through the swamp and forest to put you on edge. I'd love to play some of the memorable tracks from the boss fights, but I kinda respect the work too much to spoil it out of context. Playing the game and hearing these tracks in the moment is something truly special, and I don't want to ruin that for anyone that picks this game up. I frequently stopped moving Hazel forward just so I could listen and enjoy them and the lyrics. This soundtrack is Gambit from the latest Deadpool movie. It's made a name for itself. I have no doubt about it, you will see this at the Game Awards for soundtrack. The voice actors too deserve kudos. Hazel and Catfish, the main cast, and even side characters like Laurent are very well voiced.
Reason enough to send her granddaughter chasing after danger when her mother might not even be alive?
That's enough.
This story is heavy on the emotional side. There's a lot of sad business and trauma going around. Thankfully, you feel the weight of the emotive voice work and also the lighter tones in happier times from some of the more colourful characters. So, let's sum up. Great story, fantastic graphical stylings. Soundtrack is nothing short of perfection. The gameplay goes from pretty okay platforming down to a shallow skill system with repetitive, boring combat. The scores a vote of no confidence from the devs with the addition of a combat off switch. South of Midnight is currently selling for $70 Australian, which I think makes it difficult to recommend buying at full retail price. If it was below $50, I think I'd be happy to recommend. So as a result, I'm rating it as a yellow thumb, indicating you should probably wait for a sale. The good news is that if you have Xbox Game Pass, it's available there to play, so that's definitely something to think about. I think given this game has been spruiked as an action-adventure game, and for me it's really failed on the action part of it, it will depend on what you're after as to whether you enjoy this game or not. If you come for the action, I feel like most people are going to be sorely disappointed. If you come for the adventure, you might actually have a good time. Maybe just turn the combat off. I do wonder whether a change of genre might have lifted this from an okay offering to something truly stand out. It's a pity when the soundtrack is this good to be shackled with such a disappointing gameplay element. It's so sad, I can feel the emotional trauma growing tumorous stigma right here in my study. Oh well.
It's a one-way trip to Kushma.